Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering Meltdown. University of Texas fires all DEI employees. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Great news coming from the Washington Post. University of Texas lays off dozens who worked in DEI roles, citing a new state law. Greg Abbott tried to warn these guys. This is from the Austin American-Statesman. Texas has been working on this for a while. Texas Governor Greg Abbott calls for an end to diversity hiring practices at state agencies. Just a month ago, Florida knocked out all their DEI staff at the University of Florida. From the Washington Post, University of Florida eliminates DEI staff to comply with state law. These state laws do actually work. And the people don't just get reassigned to other jobs and then do the same thing. It doesn't work that way. Let's get into it. From the Washington Post, UT Austin lays off dozens who worked in DEI roles, citing new state law. The University of Texas at Austin is laying off dozens of employees who previously worked in diversity, equity, and inclusion roles in response to a state law that bans such programs, according to the Texas chapter of the American Association of University Professors. Employees who had previously worked in DEI roles received layoff notices on Tuesday. That came months after the university had reassigned them from those positions to comply with the legislation, which went into effect January 1st. So they got reassigned. Perhaps they were still up to no good. Perhaps not. They were DEI employees to begin with, so now they're DEI gone employees as of now. The school declined to provide a specific tally of the number of people affected, though the AAUP said 60 is a conservative estimate. Let's hope it's way over 100. I want to be clear. I don't like the idea of anybody losing their jobs. But when these people are up to no good, they don't need to have jobs. They need to go have legit jobs. And now they have the chance to do that. Quote, none of the staff who received pink slips are currently working in DEI-related jobs, said Brian Evans, a UT professor and interim president of the AAUP, and Gary Bledsoe, president of the Texas NAACP, in a joint statement. Quote, these terminations clearly are intended to retaliate against employees because of their previous association with DEI. That's enough reason for me to fire them. The DEI work is bad work. It's very discriminatory. They knew what they were doing. When they signed up for it, they signed up for accountability as well. This is the accountability. The layoffs came days after a conservative state legislator warned state universities to comply with the law banning DEI offices on campus, known as Senate Bill 17. The university president cited that law in announcing via email Tuesday that UT Austin would also close its division of campus and community engagement. At least 40 of those who were told they'd be laid off used to work in that office, which supports an array of inclusion efforts, according to the advocates. So they moved those people over to that division of campus and community engagement, and to comply with the law, they had to say, okay, you got us, we're going to let them go. Quote, I recognize that strong feelings have surrounded SB 17 from the beginning, UT Austin President Jay Hartzell wrote, adding that funding previously used for DEI will be used for teaching and research. So all of that money for 60 to 100 employees, who knows how many of them, can now actually go to productive uses instead of creating division and discriminating against your own students. The job cuts are the latest repercussions in Texas higher education and at universities across the country over whether and how colleges discuss and promote diversity. Last summer, the Supreme Court struck down race-based affirmative action. Thank you, Edward Blum. And that move to get rid of affirmative action admissions in colleges has reverberated throughout business and industry. It's been a huge positive impact. Companies are changing policies all over the place. Last month, the University of Florida eliminated DEI staff after a similar state law passed there in 2023. In College Station, Texas, a roughly 2-hour drive from Austin, a battle over diversity policies broke out last fall at Texas A&M University over SB 17. That bill, signed into law by Governor Greg Abbott, that's this guy, last June, banned DEI offices in state-funded universities and colleges after January 1st. In a letter to higher education leaders last week, State Senator Brandon Creighton warned that universities that do not comply could see their funding frozen. Compliance, he added, means going beyond merely renaming offices. Whoops, you caught us. Okay, we renamed the office. You kind of got us. We'll just fire everybody, okay? Don't mess with our funding. You can fire our people. You got us. But, don't mess with our funding. We don't want to have to go get legitimate jobs, okay? And that's what happened. Critics of the termination said they were carried out in response to that letter. Well, yes, obviously, though the university did not immediately respond to what role, if any, it played. I mean, let's be grown-ups here. Of course, that letter is like, listen, stop messing with these Republican guys. They just don't want your diversity, equity, and inclusion discrimination stuff in these colleges anymore. The issue is the funding is coming from the state or the federal government, but it's coming through the state. The state doesn't want this anymore. You can't keep doing it. So the message is, here's a letter. That's your warning. Get rid of these people or else. Bledsoe said the NAACP was considering intervention from a federal agency or asking research funding entities to weigh in, as well as talking with affected individuals about potential violations of their First Amendment rights. Why is this a First Amendment violation? Why? Because the employees that were moved were like, hey, don't worry, we moved, but we're going to still keep doing our jobs. We're going to do it on the down low and don't worry about it. And we're going to use state money to do things that we're not really supposed to do. And we're all cool like that. Like, yeah, you're all fired. The federal government is the DOJ. Of course, they'll go to the DOJ, the Civil Rights Division, and try to get Merrick Garland and his crew involved to try to sue Texas, whatever. It's not going to work. Texas does have the right to do this, same as any governor and any legislature can put this legislation together. They all have the right to do this if this is what they want to do. So they did it. Bledsoe declined to say whether the group was considering legal action, but said meetings with all the stakeholders are actively taking place. See, this is the thing. It's such a scam. People are so lazy. You knew this was coming. You saw this just happen even last month in Florida. Why would you not have worked on this if you want to try to fight Texas like months ago? This is not like brand new legislation because they're lazy and they're hustlers. According to the Chronicle of Higher Education, at least 82 bills attacking DEI in higher education have been filed in more than 20 states since 2023. Advocates say DEI initiatives make campuses and workplaces more supportive and reflective of society. State Representative Ron Reynolds, a Democrat, chairman of the Texas Legislative Black Caucus, called on Hartzell to rescind the termination notices. Well, he could rescind the termination notices. The problem is there needs to actually be funding to support those employees. The funding isn't there anymore. When the money goes, the programs end. Here's what they did in Florida. This was just 1 month ago. From the Washington Post, University of Florida eliminates DEI staff to comply with state law. The state flagship school announced the cuts Friday, but said it's unwavering in our commitment to universal human dignity. Also, another group that won't go to the trouble of finding private funding to continue their programs if they actually care about what they're doing for students. Such a scam. The University of Florida announced Friday that it had eliminated jobs and halted contracts focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts to comply with the 2023 state law. 13 full-time positions were eliminated, and administrative appointments were ended for 15 faculty members. The $5 million that the state flagship school in Gainesville had allocated for DEI efforts will be redirected to a faculty recruitment fund, according to a memo from the university's provost, general counsel, and vice president for human resources. So they're not going to continue wasting the money. They'll put it towards recruiting. Quote, to comply with the Florida Board of Governors Regulation 9.016 on prohibited expenditures, the University of Florida has closed the office of the Chief Diversity Officer, eliminated DEI positions and administrative appointments, and halted DEI-focused contracts with outside vendors, they wrote. The memo, first reported by the campus newspaper The Alligator, that is an actual newspaper, it's a local newspaper, and it's actually called the Independent Florida Alligator, was an abrupt sign of the impact the state law will have. The move was celebrated by some, including Christopher Rufo, a critic of DEI initiatives who is a trustee at New College of Florida, which fired its top diversity officer last year. Rufo wrote on social media Friday, the conservative counter-revolution has begun. Rufo really has been a superhero with all this. He was also very instrumental in getting rid of Claudine Gay, the president of Harvard. And he's done so much more. Definitely follow him on Twitter, or X, whatever you like to call it. Governor Ron DeSantis wrote on Twitter, DEI is toxic and has no place in our public universities. I'm glad that Florida was the first state to eliminate DEI, and I hope more states follow suit. Florida is not alone in its backlash against diversity-related initiatives. Lawmakers in other states have targeted DEI programs. Some companies have cut jobs, and activists have pushed to eliminate other efforts. DEI is falling apart. It's not gone yet, but it's on the way out. Have a look at this in the Washington Post. As DEI gets more divisive, companies are ditching their teams. Zoom and Snap are among companies that have cut roles in recent weeks. 81 bills attacking DEI in higher education have been filed in 23 states since 2023, according to the Chronicle of Higher Education. Advocates for such programs say they make campuses and workplaces more welcoming, supportive, and reflective of society as a whole. Critics say they are divisive, which they are, and result in expensive bureaucracies, which they do. But the sad thing is that here we have a university system that has a known problem with maintaining both its faculty and student body of color. There should never be a priority at a university to say, we want to have a certain skin color balance here, and a certain gender balance here, and a sexual preference balance. No, have students that are interested and capable of succeeding at your learning institution. That's what colleges and universities are supposed to be focused on, not skin color. But that's what Kenneth Nunn said, an emeritus professor of law at the University of Florida who retired in January, in part because of what he said were political attacks on scholarship and teaching issues related to race. He couldn't teach his hate there, so he had to retire. Quote, they belatedly put a system in place to address some of those questions, and without any information or data about the success of those efforts, the whole enterprise has been dismantled. I think it's a shame. Well, good for you, mister. Enjoy your retirement. There has already been a brain drain from the public universities in the state, Nunn said. The wrong kinds of brains have been drained out of the state. But this is just going to make that reality worse. It's going to be harder and harder for the university to fulfill what used to be its mission of providing a proper education for the entire breadth of the citizens of Florida. And it appears that they're sending the message that they're not interested in that anymore. No, they're not interested in you and your nonsense anymore, Nunn. Enjoy your retirement. Sit down. The employees whose positions were cut will receive 12 weeks of pay per the university memo and were encouraged to apply for fast-track consideration of open positions at the University of Florida. And why shouldn't they? They could work somewhere else at the college. Just cut out the nonsense and comply with the law. The memo also said the University of Florida is and will always be unwavering in our commitment to universal human dignity. As we educate students by thoughtfully engaging a wide range of ideas and views, we will continue to foster a community of trust and respect for every member of the Gator Nation. And if you're not yet a member of the Gator Nation, you might be thinking, what is the Gator Nation? The University of Florida, its athletic program, its alumni, and sports fans are often collectively referred to as the Gator Nation. The Gators compete in the National Collegiate Athletic Association, NCAA, and the Southeastern Conference, SEC, and are consistently ranked among the top college sports programs in the country. Chris Rufo recently wrote a tweet explaining the definition of DEI and the best way to understand how it actually works in practice. From Christopher Rufo, the best way to understand DEI is to separate the marketing pitch, which he agrees sounds attractive, from the reality of DEI in practice. Here's how he sees it. Diversity. We agree that it is important for people of all backgrounds to be treated fairly. But diversity in the political sense means treating individuals as a representation of their group identity, sorting them into a hierarchy based on the oppressor-oppressed dynamic, and then discriminating for or against certain groups on that basis. In practice, it means putting identity above merit, rewarding and punishing individuals based on their ancestry, and increasingly their political ideology. In academia, for example, diversity statements are used to measure conformity to left-wing racial theories. Equity. We agree that we should maximize opportunity for all. But equity is a political ideology that is distinct from and contradictory to equality. In the highest sense, equality means that the state should treat individuals impartially, as an equality under the law, while recognizing that individuals have different talents, desires, and motivations, which will inevitably lead to inequalities. In a sense, you cannot have equality without inequality. They are two sides of the same coin. Equity, on the other hand, treats all inequality as illegitimate and attempts to force group equalization or equality of outcomes through redistribution of wealth and property. This is a key tenet of critical race theory. Inclusion. We agree that institutions should have constructive, creative environments. But in practice, inclusion is a code word for a distinct left-wing orthodoxy and is used to suppress disfavored groups and opinions. At many universities, DEI administrators publish speech codes in the name of inclusion that restrict the range of discourse and speech on campus. Additionally, the inclusion principle is never extended to supposed oppressor groups, such as whites, men, and Christians. Instead, it becomes a form of exclusion. We can see this in the real world with many institutions implementing hate, bias, and safe space policies, which in practice are used to silence dissent and especially conservative speech. This is not speculation. Chris Rufo has substantiated all of these claims with dozens of investigative reports on DEI bureaucracies in universities, schools, and corporations. It is, in fact, much worse in the particular than the general dynamics he just described. Another meltdown as another university gets rid of its DEI employees even after they close their DEI office. University of Texas leadership understood they weren't going to get away with just giving people new jobs and moving people around and letting people continue to do what they shouldn't be doing. Once DEI gets banned, it needs to stay banned. And that's what Texas is doing. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.